Low cloud still to come once again tonight across eastern areas of the north. In the north and west, though, another dry and clear evening. Now, the heavy rain will push into parts of South Wales, northern areas of Devon as well overnight, but it should tend to fade away as we head into the morning just for a time. So it will be a cloudy but mild start to the day for most of us. Some sunshine around, however, particularly across northern areas. It's particularly parts of the Highlands down towards the central belt where we will see the best of the sunshine first thing, as well as southwestern areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland. Plenty of warm sunshine temperatures already in the mid-teens at first thing. Another warm day to come for parts of northwestern England. A cloudier day, though, for parts of Wales and the Midlands. We've got the remnants of tonight's wet weather lingering in these areas first thing tomorrow, and that will probably develop into heavier showers, potentially some thundery downpours after lunchtime on Saturday. And across the south, it will be a slightly drier day, actually, but there is a risk of showers that will increase as the day goes on, as those showers push up from the near continent. So in any sunshine, it's feeling slightly warmer across the south, but still a pretty cool day for many southern and central areas. Very warm in the north and west. A more widely wet day to come on Sunday. Outbreaks of potentially torrential rainfall across much of England and Wales. It will come and go, but it could bring further disruption to travel and delays on the road. But in the north and west, it stays dry for now. However, from Monday, we return to a northwesterly wind, which brings in much cooler air. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays in West Yorkshire continue on the M62, heading westbound from junction 23 to 22 at the scene of an accident west of Huddersfield. One lane remains closed. On the M16, Greater Manchester, a lane is shut anti-clockwise 20 to 19 between High Blakely and Heaton following a collision. And there are long queues heading south through Staffordshire on the M6. The two inside lanes on that four-lane stretch blocked off 14 to 13 near Stafford after a van caught fire. On the M1 in Hertfordshire, the two inside lanes closed northbound just after 9 at Redbourne for emergency resurfacing repair works following a spillage yesterday. And the A303 is closed westbound in Hampshire from the M3 to the A34 following a serious accident. That's causing long queues down the M3 to junction 10 towards Winchester as you divert. And in West Sussex, the A29 at Slindon blocked by a collision. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is your chance to win a £36,000 secret salary in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's like having £3,000 each month for an entire year. Extra cash in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Take a year off and keep it to yourself. You don't even need to tell the taxman, as it's totally tax-free. For a chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show is back. We've got Stephen Pound. Also got political commentator Russell Quirk. We're going back in the day with Richard Fitzwilliams and TV celebrity Simon Gross. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines at 7 p.m. A 27-year-old painter and decorator has been sentenced to 9 years in prison for his role in a violent riot outside a Rotherham hotel housing asylum seekers. Sheffield Crown Court heard Thomas Burley engaged in what the judge described as grotesque acts of violence fuelled by malicious and ignorant social media posts. The judge called it one of the most serious cases of rioting, imposing an extended 5-year licence because of what he called Burley's ongoing dangerousness. The police watchdog will probe the release of footage to the media of a disturbance at Manchester Airport. It comes after a mobile phone video clip of an officer kicking and appearing to stamp on the head of Fahir Ahmad went viral on social media as he and his brother Mohammed Ahmad were restrained by officers. Further footage obtained by the Manchester Evening News emerged days later, which showed the immediate lead-up to the incident on the 23rd of July. In other news, the Royal Navy serviceman who died when a Merlin helicopter ditched in the English Channel during a training exercise has been named as Lieutenant Rodri Lation. The helicopter crashed off the coast of Dorset on Wednesday night during the training exercise with HMS Queen Elizabeth. An investigation into what caused the aircraft to ditch is ongoing. Now, the Home Secretary has chaired a summit addressing the escalating crisis of people smuggling across the English Channel. The meeting followed a tragic incident this week where 12 people lost their lives when a boat capsized, the deadliest crossing this year so far. Yvette Cooper's been joined by key cabinet ministers, intelligence officials and law enforcement agencies to target criminal smuggling networks. She says there's a moral imperative to act and wants to see tighter collaboration with European partners. The government says it has no plans to send prisoners to Estonia, addressing rumours on policies to ease overcrowded jails. It comes as the UK prison population hit a record high this morning, now reaching 88,521 inmates, 171 more than last week's peak. Downing Street insists that building more prisons remains a key priority and a 10-year strategy will be published this autumn to ensure enough space for dangerous offenders. And in the US, a judge has ruled that Donald Trump's hush money sentencing will be delayed until after the November presidential election. New York Justice Juan Merchan granted the former president's wish to push back his sentencing. It's after Trump's lawyers accuse the state prosecutors and the court of election interference with less than 60 days until Election Day. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield. And tonight on the show, I'm delighted to be joined by Russell Quirk, who's a political commentator and is back. And unfortunately, we are once again scraping the bottom of the political barrel. Stephen Pound.
Let's have no talk about scraping bottoms, please.
No, he's a good guy, actually. We could not get Matthew Stadlin on this week. He's refused to come on, I think. And so Stephen's back in the chair.
That's a low blow.
It is a low blow, isn't it? But seriously, this week in the Big House, GB Energy is being debated, second reading of the bill by Ed Miliband, who, by the way, Russell, I think is probably the most dangerous man in the country at the moment, politically. He's pushing this to the max with no thought at all for the price of people's fuel bills.
Yeah.
Is it time to rein him in?
It is. I think Ed Miliband is not only the most dangerous man in Britain at the moment, he's a climate zealot. He is a man on a mission. He's not thinking about the consequences of this ridiculous climate ideology thing. The fact that we've seen just this week, him lauding the fact that he's managed to get these these wind farm auctions through, something that was actually started by the Tories, which he, of course, is now taking the credit for. What he doesn't say, and I guess you and others have asked him the question, you won't get an answer to this, is, well, OK, these auctions have happened. You've now kind of started the race in terms of getting lots and lots of wind farmers in place to transform the way that energy is delivered in Britain. What's it going to cost the taxpayer in terms of subsidies? Now, when you look into this, the subsidy for these wind farms is absolutely horrendous. It's already, literally, we're only 9 or 10 weeks into this government, already said that just the 9 or 10 weeks of stuff that Ed Miliband's done is already going to cost the average household £150 extra in their fuel bills, simply because of the subsidy that is going to have to go into these costs, the cost of the infrastructure, the cost of actually creating these wind farms. You know, and quite apart from the fact, Lee, look, do we really need to be doing away with all oil and all gas, which Ed Miliband wants to do by 2030, which is insane, frankly? It's going to cost jobs. You're going to have the likes of the city of Aberdeen completely wiped off the map because that's where their economy is focused. And why are we doing it when our carbon output as a percentage of global output is just 1% of the planet's carbon output? So we're doing all this at the risk of our entire economy, taking us back to almost medieval times. We're all going to be in sackcloths and, you know, riding horses again, just because Ed Miliband has this lunacy ideology. But it won't make any difference in the scheme of things when it comes to the amount of carbon that we're outputting versus the rest of the world.
Stephen, the lunatics have taken over the asylum ship.
Lads, I could not disagree more. Do you know, one thing that really boils my name is the fact that at the moment, who provides our electricity in this country? Électricité de France. I do not want to see us paying Germany and France for our power. I want to see us generating British power in Great Britain. I don't want to see us having to buy wind turbines from South Korea and Sweden. Let's make our own. The great thing about that Ed Miliband is talking about is about transition. Russell talked about Aberdeen, you know, been turning the lights off in Aberdeen. Look, this is about transition. What we did with the mines, when the pits closed down, you were down the pits, you know about this. The big mistake this country made is we never thought, what is going to happen to those miners? We can cancel coal, but we can't actually plan for the future. What Ed Miliband is doing is thinking about the day after tomorrow. We have to be energy independent. We cannot be reliant on the whim of some Saudi Arabian sheikh who can switch the taps off at the drop of a scimitar. As far as I'm concerned, let's have British energy for Britain.
Stephen, who do you think the investors in GB Energy are going to be? Do you think it's going to be people putting 50 quid in, people in Aylesbury and Basildon and Southend? It's not. The people that are going to be investing in those very wind farm companies through GB Energy, which, by the way, isn't actually going to produce any energy whatsoever. It's a fund. It's a hedge fund. But it's actually the worst fund in terms of return that you could ever come up with, simply because the taxpayer has to subsidise it to make the thing attractive to, guess who? Foreign investors. So, Stephen, you talk about foreign investors in electricity by way of gas and coal-powered energy, but those very same investors from China, Qatar, France, Germany are also going to be the ones that are controlling British energy, because they're going to be the investors of GB Energy.
You simply don't know that. You don't know. The great joy about what Ed Miliband's talking about setting up GB Energy is so that it can't be. This is not like the Tories flogging off the post office and flogging off everything that wasn't nailed down. This is about actually having a great British energy company. And it doesn't matter where the money comes from, as long as the control is in this country.
Stephen, you're an ex-Labour MP. I've asked times many in the chamber, when can people expect their bills to be reduced? Because we keep hearing from Ed Miliband that it's cheaper. Renewables are cheaper.
Well, he priced 300 quid off bills.
Yeah, bills keep going up.
Well, look, can I say just one thing? I mean, you've asked more questions in the last month than I think I asked in the first 5 years, and so fair play to you for that. But the reality is that it's to do with the price cap and the regulator on power in this country. At the moment, we don't have control. Once we have GB Energy, we can actually control that. We can actually say, you have to reduce the rates, you have to reduce the costs, the therm units cost. So we're talking about bringing back power and control to this country.
But my big fear is, Stephen, at what cost to the taxpayer? It's going to be about £8.5 billion to set up GB.
Lee, it's got to be less than punting our money across to France and to Berlin.
No, guys, can I just interject? Sorry, no, the total cost of taking the 50% of our power that comes from gas and coal, the cost of converting that into wind and solar derived power is £500 billion. It's £500 billion. This £8 billion stuff is for the birds. That's just the GB Energy investment.
Russ, that figure you've quoted... Actually,
where's the money coming from?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know where the money's coming from. I'll tell you where those...
You don't know?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the figures don't make sense. You're talking
exactly.
You're talking about decommissioning costs in there. Look, let's make sense. What we're talking about is an energy mix. Let's have nuclear, by all means. Let's have wave, let's have solar, let's have wind. But let's stop buying electricity from France, having it across the channel and our money going in the other direction. I'm sorry, for me, that's the bottom.
How about stopping sending money abroad on this foreign climate aid? That's about
11 billion.
Yeah, £11 billion a year. What about that, Stephen?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Wow. But the sooner we repatriate our money and repatriate our power generation, the better.
OK.
How many windmills do we think we need to replace oil and gas?
Probably one on every house.
Well,
yes.
We've actually had one day.
It's not just it's not just the improbability of that in terms of infrastructure, time, cost, and effort. It's the aesthetics alone. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Well, we had a
how
situation
awful
this week, guys, in the chamber yesterday during PMQs. I think it was the MP for the Orkney Isles. He was telling us that they'd had to switch one of these windmills off and pay the supplier, the person who owns the windmill, £2 million, not to produce electricity.
Well, that was the first wind farm that Ed Miliband sanctioned within the first few days of becoming Energy Secretary, against the wishes of the local council, against the wishes of the local populace. And we've already spent, yes, £2 million. £2
million
of taxpayers' money to tell it to stop producing energy.
Yeah. Listen, you were talking about Alistair Carmichael's comments the other day. I know Hoagie Carmichael, I know him well. And what he's saying is, if you just go a couple of miles to the east, in Norway, you'll see electricity costs 1/15 of what it costs here, because they actually regulate and control their own power.
They've also got a much smaller population, Steve.
Yeah, well,
much
matter. Look,
it does. Because we consume much more than other countries.
I'm sorry. When Russell talks about the aesthetics, I mean, I'm not a great person for aesthetics, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm more concerned about having my nan's heating on, cheap and provided within this country, than whether things look pretty.
Well, then Labour shouldn't be taking away the winter fuel allowance.
Wow, well, that was a different conversation. The winter fuel allowance. Now, we spoke about this a few weeks ago. Now, I think there's a vote on this next week in the Commons. There's going to be a debate.
There could well be.
A vote. That's going to be interesting, Russell.
Is there going to be a vote? Because I believe Starmer said he doesn't want one.
Well, I believe there is. So I've been told by the opposition whips that there may be a vote on this next week. That, Stephen, is going to put the Labour backbenchers in a funny position.
Well, not as funny as the Conservatives are going to be in, because I'm with Kemi Badenoch on this. It makes no sense for the King and people like myself to get £200 or £300 a year. It's insane. As far as I'm concerned, we should be targeting that at the people who need it the most.
So what sort of limit would you have, Stephen? Currently, it's the pension credit limit, about 12 grand a year. What sort of limit would you put it at?
I mean, let's work on that. What we call the minimum income guarantee of pension, which is everybody accepts as above the poverty line. Pension is going to go up. When I got given the winter fuel allowance, I immediately punted it up to a monkey and sent it off to the Salvation Army, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't need it, I don't deserve it, and I don't want it. But I'm delighted to think that money, which was going to individuals like myself, is now going...
about that.
Sorry, Lee, it's going to the NHS.
We know you're a good guy, Stephen. Yeah. We know you're a good guy, and you give money away to charity.
Don't destroy my reputation.
We're talking about 10 million pensioners. We're not just talking about rich pensioners like Stephen and others. We're talking about the 10 million that maybe have £15,000 coming in, which particularly now, cost of living crisis and the fact that energy costs, of course, have increased over the last 2 or 3 years. The trap, if you like, in terms of people that are retired pensioners that won't be able to afford now to heat their homes, there's going to be millions and millions of pensioners suffering, whilst at the same time we're sending 11 billion quid abroad.
It's unbelievable.
Well, let's get one thing absolutely straight. Pensioners use the NHS, and pensioners want the police, they want defence, they want prisons built. If the fact that you're not getting 200 quid doesn't mean that disappears like Scotch mist. That is the money which is going in to the things which we pensioners actually need. I want to see more police officers on the beat. I want to see more prisons being built. I want to see our armed forces properly supported. And as far as I'm concerned, the price of that is me losing 200 quid a year. Fair play. I'll take that.
But Stephen, you can afford to lose £200 a year. There's millions of pensioners out there that cannot afford this. They rely on that to pay the bill. And it's only a few months ago, Steve, I think it was May this year, when Starmer was at the dispatch box, having a go at Rishi Sunak, who was the Prime Minister at the time, saying, you must not stop this winter fuel allowance. And just a few weeks after coming to power, what does he do? He steals this money off our vulnerable pensioners.
And it only saves the government, or rather us, because it's the taxpayers' money. There's no such thing as government money, by the way.
Well, hang on a second, Lee.
It saves £1 billion, that's all. And at the same time, we're giving £9 billion in inflation-busting pay rises to train drivers, doctors and nurses. And there's more to come, of course, because now we've set the precedent.
When you see a pensioner on, like Russell says, on I don't know, 15 grand a year.
Yeah.
They just had their winter fuel payment taken away. Meanwhile, next door neighbour who drives a train has just had a £10,000 a year pay rise.
Well,
is that socialism?
There's a lot more pensioners than there are train drivers. But look, let's just get one thing straight. Less than 2 years ago, we had the debate about the free TV licence. And the government announced there and then that they were not going to give everybody over 75 a free TV licence. Leaving aside supporting the BBC, they said, no, we're going to target this at the people who need it. So they means tested it. There was not a squeak from anybody in Parliament. They said, no, fair enough. Why should the King get a free TV licence?
Stephen, Ross, there's a bit of difference between watching telly and
freezing to death.
Well, no, you know, hang on a second. The money you save from that 169 quid or whatever it is you pay for your TV licence, you could be spending on something else.
Final word, Stephen.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, it makes sense. We've steadied the ship economically. We've got to make these decisions. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's worth it for the greater good of the country.
Russell?
When you decide where to spend money as a government, it's a choice. And clearly, the Labour Party, I think, have not only made the wrong choice, but I think that they've done something against their own electorate. The people that they, as a Labour Party, are supposed to actually be representing, that is an absolute disgrace.
It is a disgrace, and I think, actually, that they've actually caved into the unions. They've bought votes for the next
They've betrayed
election.
their electorate. I think they've betrayed
listen,
their
great debate, guys. Thank you, Stephen. Coming up, we're going back in the day with Richard Fitzwilliams.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
What prompted you to go on your incredible journey?
Well, you know, I was fighting my own demons at the time, you know, before I started the walk, and it had been a long journey, if you like. And, you know, I knew that I needed to make a change, and my daughter had just flown the nest. I was a single parent before this, and previous to that, I was ex-parachute regiment. And I knew that I needed to make a change, because if I didn't, I'm not sure where I would have been now, if that makes sense. So, yeah, something just came into my head at the very end of July and said, look, go and walk the UK coastline. And that's exactly what I did. And 6 years later, we've just finished.
You met your missus on the journey as well, didn't you? So truly, Chris, a transformative journey for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, you step into the unknown like that, you know, you have no idea how things are going to work out. You go out with so little expectation, but only really with the aim to, you know, for me personally, to come back feeling a lot better than what I was before I left. And that certainly succeeded. So everything that happened along that journey was one big learning curve. And I got to learn a lot about myself, a lot about, you know, the public and people. And yeah, it was just a life-changing transformation for me. And, you know, I learned so much, and I know what I want to do with the rest of my life as a result of it. And I met the most amazing people. And, you know, I worked hard. 6 years of carrying your house on your back isn't the easiest feat in the world, I can promise you that, but it was worth every single step, because, I rescued a dog along the way. I met my now fiancée, Kate Barron, along the way, and we had a baby together along the way as well. So to start in the position that I did and then end up with all of that coming over the line with me was just something that I never expected, and I couldn't have dreamed it up, to be honest.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World, going back in the day now with Richard Fitzwilliams. Delighted to meet you, Richard. Royal commentator, you're a film critic, you've appeared on TV stations all around the world, been in some films as well yourself, but I'm interested in the film critic bit. How do you become a film critic?
By firstly being absolutely fascinated by film. I mean, some find it holds a mirror up to nature, others find it wonderful for escapism. It's a mixture of that. You become a film critic by loving movies, and of course you write or start to write school, university, and also subsequently for papers and radio, and letters to the editor too, putting your point of view. You see a vast number of films. My problem is that I don't tend to relate to animated movies or horror movies.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I have to see a few of them because they are popular. But I loved, and as a child, epics. They're fascinating. The way they evoked past eras, it was really extraordinary in certain...
I mean, we spoke earlier. I used to like the, growing up, I used to like the 1930s, 40s gangster movies from America. Then the 50s stuff with James Dean in, James Dean and Marlon Brando was a favourite of mine, On the Waterfront, and films like that. But moving forward to I think the 1960s probably, apart from the Clint Eastwood films, I love the spaghetti westerns and stuff like that. And then the 70s were, I don't know, not very good, were they?
But they were, because if you from Jaws to the French Connection to the Godfather 1 and also 2.
I'll retract that statement. You're the expert.
No, but it was in the 70s. I came from South Africa to Britain, and I was absolutely fascinated by the range, of course, of theatre and of the art and so forth, which I review. But, of course, the 70s meant that you had this amazing sense that you could distribute a film throughout the country. Yeah. Before that, with The Godfather and Jaws, that was an absolutely pivotal moment. Now, of course, things, since the pandemic, it's been very difficult for cinema.
So picture this, Richard, right? For some particular reason, you do not like me at all. I find that hard to believe, and I've got to go in a cell for a month, and you're in the next cell for a month, and we've got a video machine and a cassette with a film on. You dislike me.
Intensely.
And I've got to watch this film on a loop. You've got to choose a film that is horrible, it's going to really, really wind me up, but you've got to watch your favourite film. What would your favourite film be to keep watching? And what would the film be you gave to me to watch to punish me?
Well, firstly, my favourite film. I'm happy to tell you, I saw it yesterday. It's showing again at the Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square. It is that magnificent epic where you had the cast, the visuals, the script, and the music as good, if not better, than any other. So well aligned. Lawrence of Arabia, directed by David Lean. None of the actors were ever better, and some never subsequently as good. Yeah. So that is what I would choose. I've seen it many times. I can recite it. I won't here, but it was very exciting when they discovered 18 or 19 extra minutes in 1988, and that would be my favourite.
So as punishment to me, what film would you force me to watch for that month?
Oh, I think I'd punish you with a film that has wide appeal for the fans of Deadpool and Wolverine, but not for me because I love some of Marvel, I mean Black Panther, say. But on the other hand, this was really torturous for me.
How do you spell that?
Deadpool.
Yeah. Oh, it's Deadpool.
And Wolverine.
Oh, I don't watch them.
But you would, because I'd force you to. You're in the cell and you don't have a choice.
That's
in fact, you could see it again and again and again, which is what I've done for movies I love. Only you would be forced to. You'd have no choice at all.
That's quite cruel of you.
Well, it'd be very cruel, is what I'd want to do.
As a film critic, you watch a film and you might like it or hate it. So how can you be a balanced film critic? Because what you like, I might dislike, and vice versa.
Well, what you do is, of course, you tell, you feel you've got, I mean, obviously you want to relate to an audience, so you give the story without giving spoilers. I emphasise this because there are so many critics do, and it is cruel, and that spoils it. In fact, to the extent when I see a film, and I get tripped up by this occasionally, you see the film, but the trouble is, if you read any synopsis, any review before you see it, you're very likely going to learn certain things. It's like seeing a trailer. I mean, I'm looking forward to Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
I've opened the door before going into cinemas, and they've been showing part of it, and of course instantly I've gone like this because I don't want to see it. What a trailer will do will give you a subliminal flash even of just for a millisecond of every spectacular scene in the film. It will ruin it. Totally.
Okay, let's just flip this round a little bit.
So what I'm trying to do is to reach an audience, and you want to tell your audience, give them an idea whether they will enjoy the film. They'll get my take on it, but then if they follow what I've written, they'll have an idea.
So let's flip this round. We're still in the cell.
Just in the cell.
And I'm going to choose my favourite film, and that would be Forrest Gump. Love the film.
Very good, yes.
Love it. Every time it
Hanks.
comes on, I just watch it because it just takes you to a different place, and you just feel happy that this underdog just does everything by accident and becomes brilliant at everything he does. I think there's a little bit of Forrest Gump in all of us. We want to be like Forrest Gump. And probably the worst film I've ever seen, which would be really a punishment for you, something I saw in my teens, was a film called The Blob.
Well, I've never seen it.
Awful film, dreadful film, and I think that would punish you. It is literally a blob that keeps getting bigger and bigger. I think it's Steve McQueen. It's a big red blob that just keeps growing through this city and eating things.
When I think of Steve McQueen, of course, I think of The Great Escape.
I think it's Steve McQueen, yeah. I think that's your homework, Richard.
So this would be the thing, that it would be a great escape to escape
now,
from
that is
the
a good
blob.
film. Historically incorrect.
Oh, well, but then you've got Lawrence in some ways, but you want to capture the spirit of something. You can't expect blow-by-blow factual account. And anyway, what are the facts? What happened to Lawrence and Dara, for example?
Do you think, you look back at some of the great actors, one of my favourite actors probably in the 30s and 40s was Gary Cooper. Read his biography, absolutely brilliant bloke. Do you think the actors were better then or better now?
I don't think one can make a choice. I mean, looking at my favourite actors, say Ian McKellen, for example, one of the mesmerising experiences in the 1970s in the London stage was when he played Macbeth opposite another favourite, Dame Judi Dench. And then, of course, some roles by Paul Scofield, who was superb, Sir David Suchet. I mean, magnetic presence on stage, and, of course, on the small screen as Poirot. So many...
my mother loves Poirot. She loves that.
Oh,
Richard, this has gone really quick. Your time's up.
That's not true.
Fascinating discussion. Thanks for coming.
Great pleasure.
Brilliant, chap. Coming up next, we've got Right versus Left.
Hello, good evening. It's been a pretty soggy day for many southern areas, but across the north and west it's been very warm and sunny, and that theme is set to continue as we head into the weekend, as further heavy rain will arrive as a result of low pressure swirling around to the south of the UK. An easterly wind, though, will continue to bring in some low cloud to north and eastern areas, so some high and low cloud still to come once again tonight across eastern areas of the north. In the north and west, though, another dry and clear evening. Now, the heavy rain will push into parts of South Wales, northern areas of Devon as well overnight, but it should tend to fade away as we head into the morning just for a time. So it will be a cloudy but mild start to the day for most of us. Some sunshine around, however, particularly across northern areas. It's particularly parts of the Highlands down towards the central belt where we will see the best of the sunshine first thing, as well as southwestern areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland. Plenty of warm sunshine temperatures already in the mid-teens at first thing. Another warm day to come for parts of northwestern England. A cloudier day, though, for parts of Wales and the Midlands. We've got the remnants of tonight's wet weather lingering in these areas first thing tomorrow, and that will probably develop into heavier showers, potentially some thundery downpours after lunchtime on Saturday. And across the south, it will be a slightly drier day, actually, but there is a risk of showers that will increase as the day goes on, as those showers push up from the near continent. So in any sunshine, it's feeling slightly warmer across the south, but still a pretty cool day for many southern and central areas, very warm in the north and west. A more widely wet day to come on Sunday. Outbreaks of potentially torrential rainfall across much of England and Wales. It will come and go, but it could bring further disruption to travel and delays on the road. But in the north and west, it stays dry for now. However, from Monday, we return to a northwesterly wind, which brings in much cooler air. Bye-bye.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m, followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain, followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Right versus Left with Russell Quirk and my old mucker, Stephen Pound. He's back in the chair. We've got the yes-no quiz coming up later, Stephen.
Yes.
So, yes, a few weeks back, I sat here and the legend in his own lunchtime, Matthew Stadlen, sat over there, and he invited me to Notting Hill Carnival. It's a great family event, lots of fun, lots of multiculturalism, lots of diversity there. But I'm looking at the stats, and we had a couple of people who was attacked there that subsequently died. We've had over 300 arrests, multiple emergency workers attacked in the streets, knives recovered, crime left, right and centre, businesses boarding up their shop windows. This is not a family occasion, is it, Russell?
No, it's anarchy. It's not a cultural festival, it's a crime festival, is what it is. It's
festival of crime?
It is. It's a celebration, big inverted commas, of crime. It's an excuse for lots of crime. And how we allow this thing to continue, and I don't know who is responsible for this in terms of being able to cancel it, whether it's Sadiq Khan or whether it's government. I suspect it's Sadiq Khan.
The Met Police have to sign off on it.
Well, and they should, because they're the ones that are getting kicked and punched and spat at.
So why do they sign off it?
Well, you know why? It's because they don't want to be accused of being racist by saying we've got to stop this thing. Can you imagine if this thing was held every year as a St George's Parade on the 23rd of April in Westminster, and there was even half of the violence, 10% of the disorder, how quickly do you think it would be banned?
We'd be labelled, or they would be labelled, Stephen, as far-right thugs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And fast-track through the justice system.
Exactly.
I mean, I was born in the area. I lived in the Peabody, just over the road from there. And 1958, we had some very serious race riots in Notting Hill, around that particular area. And at that particular time, it was felt that to import the carnival, which was originally from Port of Spain, Trinidad, and it later on flourished, obviously, in Brazil and in Australia. The idea to actually have that as a celebration of community, not necessarily Caribbean community, but the local Notting Hill community. This was a time of Rackman. This was a time when we were under a lot of pressure on the gate, and it was a good idea. What's happened now is it's grown exponentially. It is no longer that merry, cheerful, police officers having an ice cream with somebody and women wearing fantastic garments.
But why can't we admit that, Stephen?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm admitting it here and now, and I'm born and bred West Londoner. I know the patch, I know it very... I've been to the carnival many, many times, and mostly with the police as an observer. And I have to say, nobody really enjoys it after dark. I used to say to the police, what happens if it rains? They said, well, when it rains, that's bad, because when it doesn't rain, people can see the different gangs. When it rains, everybody's up close together.
So the police admit that the whole thing then is proliferated by gangs, people selling drugs, causing trouble, attacking people.
I think we all accept that. So at the moment, the Notting Hill Carnival is run by an independent group of people. They get some money from various charities. It's not run by the state. It's not run by the GLA or the GLC.
But Stephen, in an event like this, anywhere else in the world, a celebration of culture, diversity, whatever, businesses should be flourishing. They should be making loads of money. That should be like their Christmas, not boarding the shops.
But we don't hear this happening in Brazil when there's the huge Rio Carnival.
I'll come to this
millions and millions and millions. We don't hear of people getting stabbed and acid thrown in their faces.
And you don't see it in Port of Spain, Trinidad either, because they've moved it away from the narrow streets. But look at March the 17th, St Patrick's Day in New York. It is a fabulous occasion. Macy's and everybody in Bloomingdale's.
How many get stabbed?
Hardly any. They do an enormous amount of business because it's a different size.
And do you know what the cost of policing is? So you say it doesn't cost anybody anything. It does. It costs us as the taxpayer £50 million.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
50 million quid a year.
No, the point about the New York one and the Port of Spain one and the Sydney one is it's in different size streets. These are not the narrow, around Ladbroke Grove and off Portobello.
So do you think it should be moved, not cancelled?
Well, I honestly think if we want to have it, and I'd have no problem with people celebrating their culture and their community, Hyde Park has got to be the place. I don't care what you say.
I'm not sure it would reduce the crime.
We've got to go for ticketing as well.
Ticketing?
Yeah. I think you can't just have people rock up there. We've got to have some idea who's...
Don't give it to the Oasis lot, though. It'll be an absolute disaster.
Well, no, there'll be dynamic ticket pricing then, won't they? And so that there'll be...
So like a wristband-style system where you can hop in and hop out?
What's wrong with that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, Steve. If it saves lives and stops policemen getting attacked and stops all these knife crimes, then I haven't got a problem with that at all.
I'm sorry, I look at the face of Cher Maxman, the young woman we talked about. I look at that woman's face, an innocent young mother, it's supposed to having a good day out, you know, trying to intervene to stop a fight, and she's been...
Brave woman.
Well, absolutely. And you know, what's going to happen to her kids for the rest of their life? And what's going to happen to the people who did the killing? You know, I'm sorry, that's wrong at so many levels. You know,
but we can't talk about the Notting Hill Carnival without talking about two-tier police.
Exactly.
And two-tier
Exactly.
Right? The fact that we had 3 or 4 weeks ago the disorder that we saw on the streets of Westminster and Leeds and so on, well documented. You've talked about it a lot in terms of the different way that the police approached different members of the community, if you like, in terms of how they were dealt with.
Nice way of putting it.
Look at Notting Hill. Have we seen anyone that's actually been charged? I mean, apart from the murders, yes, they've been charged.
The point I made to Yvette Cooper in the chamber the other day, you know, if you can take somebody from Leeds or Manchester or Birmingham who's been throwing stones at police, and within 10 days have them arrested, tried and imprisoned, then why can't you do it for people carrying knives in and around London?
But if you research what has happened to people that have been arrested, you know, the hundreds of people last year, the hundreds of people the year before, people that have attacked a police officer. I mean, attacking a police officer should automatically be an imprisonable offence. Prima facie, that's it.
Used to be.
How many people do we think over the last 3, 4, 5 years at the Notting Hill Carnival that have attacked police officers have actually been incarcerated? I bet you can count them on one hand.
Why is that, Stephen?
I can't...
Is that two-tier policing?
I'm not unhappy about that expression because I think...
Why?
Because I don't like the idea. As far as I'm concerned, policing has to be for everybody equally.
But I get police officers contacting me, telling me there is two-tier policing.
Well, look, I mean, the thing is, we need to... I mean, I'm talking to police officers when I've done the carnival with, you know, the borough commanders, and I say, look, there's somebody smoking a joint over there. You know, I'm getting high just off the downwind for it. He said, we can't arrest them. I said, what do you mean? He said,
what about lads in Birmingham roundabouts with machetes? I mean, they didn't arrest them either.
Well, no, I'm sorry. You see, anybody with a machete in the Notting Hill Carnival is going to get their collar felt, no question about it. There's no way that the old Bill will stand back when somebody's got a machete.
Well, hold on a minute, Stephen. Just a few weeks back, like Russell says, in Birmingham, they were telling people to hand their machetes into
mosques,
at the local mosque.
So you don't get nicked.
Well, we're talking about the Notting Hill Carnival. I mean, there's certain circumstances in...
I'm talking about policing as well, two-tier policing.
Look, I think the problem there is the police are asked to do an utterly impossible job. On the one hand, they're asked to be this happy, smiling, you know, doing the old samba down the road there. On the other hand, they're supposed to...
Should they really be dancing down the streets, police officers?
Well, I'm just trying to remember the name of the MP who said, I want police officers who aren't dancing around a rainbow flag.
That'll be me.
Actually, it was you.
It was me, yeah.
Look, the reality is that the police try to get into the spirit of it, and I think they've gone too far in the wrong direction. Honestly, you know, the idea of a copper, you know, having an ice cream in the middle of it, it might look good, but the reality is there's a cold, dark, blood-stained reality all around that.
Because the reality is that, for balance, I'll say this. I think, you know, perhaps that approach actually was made with good intentions. So get involved in the community. I kind of see that. The problem is it has gone too far. Once you start seeing police officers with kind of rainbow painting on their police helmets and dancing the Macarena and so on, what that then signifies to people that would do us harm, would do us wrong, is that the police are just weak. Weak. And of course then those that would do us harm decide to take advantage of that. That's exactly what's happening.
I think Notting Hill is made up of sort of small, narrow streets. You've got, you know, Westbourne Grove, Portobello Road around there. It simply is no longer suitable for it. I think we had to do something after the race riots, but that was 1958. You know, it was, what, 60-odd years ago.
Celebrating culture is a brilliant thing. Britain is about multiple cultures. You can argue whether they've integrated properly or not, but that doesn't mean that we let almost, I mean, I know it's police, but with gay abandon, people go to this thing in their hundreds of thousands with bad intent. Drug dealers,
right, guys, I've got to stop you there. We've got the yes-no quiz coming up. Stephen, you was quite awful at this last time, weren't you?
No.
And I'm coming in as blind.
He knows the rules. So
I don't.
It's simple, Russell. It's 5 questions, yes or no. And if you don't beat Stephen, then you should be thoroughly ashamed, embarrassed, and don't come out for the rest of the week. Is that fair, Stephen?
Yes.
He knows the rules now. Right, question number 1. Should GB Energy be scrapped?
Yes.
No.
Stephen, should net zero be scrapped?
No.
Yes.
Wow. Will Labour win the next election?
Yes.
No.
I like this. Stephen, should Labour reintroduce the winter fuel allowance?
No.
Yes.
Russell, can a woman have a penis?
No, funnily enough.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, God. Look what you've done. Look what you've done. You were doing really, really well, Russell, until the last...
Couldn't help myself.
The old penis question. That,
it does pop up, doesn't it?
Yes. It does pop up from that. Yeah, thanks for that. Another Ofcom complaint there from Stephen Pound. You can come back on one of these questions. Should Labour introduce the winter fuel allowance?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
Am I allowed to now speak?
Yeah.
Right, OK. Because it's an injustice to pensioners that have paid into the system for millions, for lots and lots of years, millions and millions of pensioners.
Yep.
And the fact that there is money, the government has a budget of £850 billion, and to try and save £1 billion at the expense of our pensioners is an utter disgrace.
I think we've kind of talked this one through earlier. Can I just come back on will Labour win the next election?
Yes.
I think one of the great unknowns, or the uncommented on factors in the last election, was the number of Labour seats at which Reform came second.
Yes.
I think the Labour victory was brilliant. I mean, I'm obviously delighted as a Labour man.
But Conservative loss, you mean?
It was actually built on sand.
Yeah.
The reality is that we're looking over our shoulders to reform, and this is not 1997. There is not that national feeling of euphoria that's sweeping the nation at the moment. We've got some very, very serious questions to answer. I don't think Reform can win the next election, but I think Reform can influence the next election out of all proportion to its present...
Russell, can Reform win the next election?
No, I think they can. I think Labour will definitely... I mean, look, 9-10 weeks in, the trajectory is already saying that Keir Starmer is an extremely unpopular individual, probably will end up being the most unpopular Prime Minister in our history. I think the Conservatives will be all at sea. They will be a mishmash of a mess over the next 4 or 5 years, and I think the vacuum needs to be filled, and I think it will probably be filled by Reform.
OK, guys, thank you. That's the yes or no quiz. Sad to see that Stephen Pound has won this. It's quite embarrassing. Russell, that is. Please stay in over the weekend. No bragging rights there. And he'll be buzzing until the next show.
I'm going to get the badges made now.
We did try
Can
and
I get a T-shirt?
We've got to allow Labour to be good at something.
You know, he's once described as a pound shop Vince Cable. Who said that? I think it was me, weren't it?
You said Pennywise.
Look, coming up next, we're going to have Last Orders with Simon Gross.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
So Prince Harry, apparently, Operation Bring Harry In from the Cold. Do you feel there's any truth to this?
Lots of tongues are wagging, Nana. I mean, you know, we heard that he was at the memorial for Lord Robert Fellows, and obviously William was there as well. And so there was lots of, everyone going into overdrive. That was in Snettisham, Norfolk the other day. He wasn't going to attend, said the People, a mouthpiece of his. I would have actually thought that maybe a lookalike had turned up. But now we have been led to believe that Harry's been talking to people from friends from his old life. And it's not that he wants to make a permanent move to the UK, so I believe. What I've heard, it's more about his reputation.
Well, he wants to have his cake and eat it, by the sounds of it. I mean, obviously, no good cake it remains uneaten.
We know that the royal family is his currency. I mean, even his late mother, obviously he's almost usurped her memory, and he needs this. He needs this to make money. Of course, he raced in for Lord Robert Fellows' memorial service. So there's lots of ambiguous behaviour, and he is going to be, in New York. We call it the silly season, don't we? And we're also looking that there's lots of different stories that are coming out. But he needs to tell stuff. He's going to be in New York, and it's. We've got to remember the enormous amount of hurt and offence. I mean, Prince William absolutely reeling. Poor Princess Catherine. Spare book coming out at the most awful time. And you've got the Netflix
series.
It's absolutely, this is a rehabilitation strategy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
That's Last Orders at the Bar, and tonight I'm joined by Simon Gross. Nice to meet you, mate.
And you,
TV
long
personality.
last. Very much. Not as much as you, though, Lee.
I know you're a big fan. TV personality. You've been in Big Brother.
I was in Big Brother.
A brief stint.
I went back.
You went back, doing lots of great work, acting.
Yeah.
The thing that struck me when I was talking earlier, Simon, was that you've got a family member who's got dementia.
Yes.
And you was telling me about you was doing some work in care homes, one-to-one sort of performances for people suffering from dementia. How does that work?
I mean, before I went to, so I trained as an actor originally. Before I went to college, I mean, to earn money to go to college, you need money to go to a drama school. I used to take in the days of the 80s, my old tape recorder and go round care homes and do my own one-man show for the elderly.
Right.
And, you know, you get like £20–30, but it all helps, you know? And that kind of grew. So obviously, from a very young age, I mean, I actually, as a Saturday job, I was a care assistant in a care home with the elderly at the age of 13, making the dinners for the elderly.
Yeah.
And there was a heavy amount of like Alzheimer's, dementia residents in the home. So I was around from a very young age, as well as being with my grandparents as well, late grandparents. 13 years old, working with dementia clients. And then I decided I wanted to go into theatre, so did one-man shows. And now I actually produce other artists, theatre actors and performers, and we go into care homes and we do a 60-minute musical show for the elderly. So we're still doing it. I mean, I've got a lot of compassion, a lot of time,
and a lot of talent.
Well, absolutely.
A lot of talent.
But I think the elderly are missed when it comes to a lot of things, and entertainment is one of them.
So, being in the entertainment industry, it's not always a bed of roses. You know, long stints looking for work, needing money. So it's not as glamorous as some people think. It's only like a small percentage of people really get the big bucks, isn't they?
It's hard work. Yeah, it's hard work. I mean, I've been doing it since I was probably about 6 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I went to Guildford School of Acting and I trained as an actor, but that was later on. But I mean, you have to go around the homes and do these one-man shows, and you know.
Can you train to be an actor? Is that?
Yeah. Well.
Or do you think people can just act?
I think you've either got it or you haven't.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing to say. I think you've either got it or you haven't. You've either got it in you or you haven't. But I think you are taken more seriously if you've done 3 years at RADA.
Okay.
That's the way the industry is going or has gone.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right. It's like a footballer. You're either good at football or you're not.
Yeah.
And it's the same with acting. I agree.
So you told me earlier on that you had a chance encounter with the great late Ken Dodd.
I did.
So I've been seeing him many times, and one of the things that struck me about Ken Dodd was when, I think the last time I saw him was at Nottingham many years ago. He came on about 7 o'clock, and at midnight...
It's still there.
It was still there. I mean, the theatre was half empty, not because people didn't enjoy the show. They left because they got buses.
Want to go to bed.
They got buses picking them up. Absolutely. But he gave you some good advice.
He did. I was in my resting days in theatre.
What's a resting day?
It means resting, like when actors don't work. They just have to go and work in places like pubs and restaurants. I was at a wonderful, lovely hotel in Birmingham. I worked there for 3 years in the restaurant, working as a waiter.
Was you resting for 3 years?
I was resting for 3 years, what it was, regular money. Just got into it.
Yeah.
And Ken Dodd was making a surprise appearance for a children's charity at the hotel that I was working at, and they let me... They knew I had theatre background. They wanted me to be part of it. Yeah. And he saw me, he watched me, which was amazing. And like he said, you know, Simon, in the lift Simon, you've got to get out of this hotel. You've got to get back into show business because you deserve your platform. You should be there.
Yeah.
And that made me realise I think I was about 17 years old, that it was time to get out and get back. So his words have always stuck with me. Ken Dodd in the lift of a Birmingham hotel.
That's good advice, wasn't it?
It was good advice. I mean, they don't make Ken Dodds anymore, do they?
No, they don't. And
they don't.
What struck me about Ken Dodd was the times I saw him on stage, he was never obviously lots of double entendres and stuff like that, but he never swore.
No.
He didn't have to.
No.
It's just hilarious.
I think the old days of variety, people like Ken Dodd and Des, Tom O'Connor, the greatest like variety performers, and Ken Dodd obviously was one of the greatest. I don't think we're ever going to see those people ever again, and I think that advice that he gave me was so valuable. It always will stick with me. And I did leave that hotel. I left.
So, Simon, what about you giving advice to young people that want to be actors? As children, there'd be some kids now wanting to be actors, go on the stage.
Well, my dad said, you're not doing it.
Did he?
I came from a farming background. My dad was a farmer, and he...
So you've let him down. You've let the family business down, have you?
He's not alive, unfortunately, anymore. But my late father said, you've got to work hard at school. Yeah. You've got to do schoolwork.
That's good advice, surely.
It wasn't, because I was rubbish at school. A bit like pulling pints and doing everything else. But anyway, he said, you've got to work hard at school. I don't want you to be an actor. He was a farmer. So I fought against him. I think if you want to be an actor, if you want to work in theatre and do what you want to do, you've got to do it. You've got to really want to do it. Yes. And get all the experience that you can get. Try and get amateur dramatics. I did loads of that. Work for free and build yourself up. Go and get some training, go and get some coaching. You can't just do it without none. You have to. And basically work hard and follow your dream.
Right, talking about following dreams.
Yes.
I've got a dream that somebody's going to pull a perfect pint, Simon. You've got your pint pot there.
Yeah.
You've got your tap there. You've got 30 seconds, pull the perfect pint and plonk it on the bar while we carry on chatting.
Right,
go for
so
it.
I should just go now?
Yeah, just go for it.
Okay, right, okay.
Is this the first time you've pulled a pint?
It is the first time I've pulled a pint, yeah. As I said, I was a waiter, not a barman.
In a cocktail bar?
Oh, yeah. There's a song about that, isn't
there? There's a song.
I was waiting. Oh,
yeah, you guys go on.
That's it. Right, there you go. There you go. Oh, God, it's going everywhere. It's like Niagara Falls in here. Actually, it's looking quite goodly,
No, it's not. It's looking awful, mate.
Is it?
It's dreadful.
Really?
Yeah.
It's rising?
I beg your pardon. That's the second time in the show tonight. Oh dear, another Ofcom.
Oh dear, sorry.
That's a shocker.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's terrible.
What? It's worse than some?
Well, normally you need about a 1 inch, half an inch head on it there. Yeah, if you serve that behind, if you work behind a bar and you serve that, you'd probably get it thrown on you.
Right, okay.
And then quickly removed.
Doesn't it not just sort of rise and go down?
But, if you'd have done that during one of your resting periods, I think...
That's why I was a waiter.
Yeah, I think they'd have thrown it at you. But no, social media age. We live in a massive social media age. I know you're active on social media. It's a good outlet, though, isn't it? And it's got its positives and it's got its negatives as well.
I'm old school, though. We didn't have, when I was growing up, we didn't have social media. We didn't have phones. We used to talk to people.
It's probably a good job.
Well, it is. I miss talking to people. I like to talk and I like to meet people. I think it's very, very easy to go behind a camera on a phone and stuff. And I think social media has a lot of positives. It has a lot of negatives as well. I think, we both, you're on television a lot. I've done television. If you're on television, like I did Big Brother and then I did Celebrity Big Brother, I did both. You take a knock with it. You have to. And I think you've got to either read it or not read it. And I just don't read it. So the thing about social media is I'm learning more about it all the time. Yeah. But I was of an age where we didn't have social media, growing up in the 80s.
Yeah, back in the 80s, you used to write to people, didn't you? Can you remember? We had pen friends.
We had letters.
Yeah,
we had envelopes.
Yeah, I used to write to people, and that was a big skill we were taught.
We had a telephone in the house.
Yeah. Not everybody did.
No, well, we did.
Well, I think where I grew up, we had one telephone for the whole street.
Really?
Yeah, and that's in the 70s. That's in the 1970s. I'm a little bit... I know you find it hard to believe I'm a little bit older than you.
Oh, Lee, you look great.
But that is a shocking pint. I'm going to give you... what can I give you? I would say...
Be nice.
5 out of 10.
Oh, I'll go with that.
If you come back on this show, you can have another go. But it's all about the angle. If you'd have paid attention on the other shows, Simon, which you have watched, you probably would have performed much better. But look, that's a great interview. Love the suit.
Thank you.
Much better than the hideous shirt that you produced earlier on when you
That's why I didn't wear it.
Yeah, well, hopefully next time you'll put that shirt on. Great.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Last orders with Simon. Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. It's been another cracking show with some brilliant guests. But coming up next, we've got Friday Night Live.
Thank you, Lee. On tonight's show, a developing story this evening. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said it's time for Labour to bring back the Rwanda plan or take the blame for the deaths of children at sea. We'll debate that next.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. It's been a pretty soggy day for many southern areas, but across the north and west, it's been very warm and sunny, and that theme is set to continue as we head into the weekend, as further heavy rain will arrive as a result of low pressure swirling around to the south of the UK. An easterly wind, though, will continue to bring in some low cloud to north and eastern areas, so some high and low cloud still to come once again tonight across eastern areas of the north. In the north and west, though, another dry and clear evening. Now, the heavy rain will push into parts of South Wales, northern areas of Devon as well overnight, but it should tend to fade away as we head into the morning just for a time. So it will be a cloudy but mild start to the day for most of us. Some sunshine around, however, particularly across northern areas. It's particularly parts of the Highlands down towards the central belt where we will see the best of the sunshine first thing, as well as southwestern areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland. Plenty of warm sunshine temperatures already in the mid-teens at first thing. Another warm day to come for parts of northwestern England. A cloudier day, though, for parts of Wales and the Midlands. We've got the remnants of tonight's wet weather lingering in these areas first thing tomorrow, and that will probably develop into heavier showers, potentially some thundery downpours